Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of Atlas Information Live. I'm your host, Atlas Alex, and today we are going to be embarking on an exploration of the creative process of the universe. And specifically, how that creative process is interrupted, and not only interrupted, but manipulated and ultimately inverted. This is an important to understand, especially in this age, the Iron Age of humanity and the Yuga. And there is so much misinformation and disinformation, and so many well-intentioned, well-meaning people who are spreading practices which on surface appear to be very much aligned with spirituality. And in fact, these practices, namely manifesting your desires, or using, in the simplest terms, using your focused, concentrated energy and visualization to change who you are and affect outcomes in the world related to your well-being, your financial well-being, your psychological well-being, relationships, etc., etc. And if you listen to some of the most prominent, well-known, and well-respected self-help gurus or New Age gurus, for that matter, you will find that they invoke God or the universe, the power of creation or the power of spirit, of divinity, all the time. And they use the language of traditional esotericism, of, again, of most spiritual teachings. In their teachings. And this makes their teachings very conducive to one's own spiritual longings, the longing for self-actualization, for self-realization. And they use such platitudes as energy flows where attention goes. For example, that's a very popular one in both the New Age and the self-help arenas. They're not one industry. They're definitely separate industries. However, there's a great deal of crossover where manifestation of your desires are concerned, and creating the identity that you want, the relationships that you want, the life that you want, and the outcomes in that life that you want. And the more spiritual someone is, the more they tend to believe that by using these methodologies, they can create very positive outcomes in the world, and bring about very positive change in the world. But there is a process underway. There is a metaphysical that is taking place. in these self-help or practices for altering reality. From the perspective of us, who are, whether we like it or not, very much a part of this reality, a part of this creation. Now, physical reality, the physical world, the ancient Hindu referred to as Maya, illusion. And anyone who has seriously practiced esotericism for any length of time, has any semblance of self-knowledge, knows that this reality is just that. It's an illusion. It's a fabrication. It's a simulation, if you want to use the language of the simulation theorists. We are but characters in this world, and we are playing a role on the world stage. This is why the personality happens to have its root word, persona, character. Like when you play a video game, like when you play a MMORPG, or even something like The Sims or whatever, you take control of a character, and that character exists in that virtual world, whatever the nature of the particular game is. But you, the player, consider yourself real. You would not consider your character. The character is a vehicle for you, the player, to be able to experience the game. Because without some sort of representation of yourself, some projection, however altered it may be, and it often is altered very dramatically, very often the character you create in the game might have zero resemblance to you. And even if you can, like, Super Mario, I mean, how many Italian plumbers are playing Mario, right? I don't know many, 8-year-old, 10-year-old, 12-year-old Italian plumbers with mustaches and red overalls and a hat. And yet, in the game world, that's precisely the character that they take control of. Or Legend of Zelda, as another example. I mean, that's a game that's played by men, women, children, adults. But Link, the character of Link, is the same for all of them. And whether you're speaking of the classic Zelda games from the 80s and 90s, or the contemporary one, the other one, I can't remember the name of the other one, but Link has always been very stylized, because the world of Zelda has always been very stylized. It's a fantasy world. It's a dream world. And the character you take control of, the character you play, is likewise fits into that mold of that fantasy, that dream. So, with having said that, then when we love ourselves and know ourselves, we come to realize that we too are characters in this world, and that in a very real sense we are fantasizing this world into existence. Creation is a mental construct. in which we can also have emotional experiences and what we perceive as physical experiences. Now, all of that is important to keep in mind as we get to today's topic with some more detail, because we're going to be speaking about creation and the ongoing unfolding of creation. And to do so, we're going to go right back to the beginning, right foundation, because it is at the foundational level and at the simplest archetypal level that we can really understand and comprehend what is going on when we look at the popular teachings, the most popular teachings in terms of metaphysical performance in the world. Manifesting your desires, visualization, harnessing your energy, focused concentration, etc., etc. Belief, power belief, rewriting your beliefs, and so on and so forth. The goal today is to demonstrate and show this dynamic, this metaphysical dynamic, in a novel way, and express it, demonstrate it, and express it using the clues that have been left for us in the metaphysical code of reality itself. And that's language. Words are magical. That's why we call it spelling. That's a kind of clever play on words. But truly, when we consider I seem to be suffering a kind of malfunction here. Connection is unstable. If you're on Wi-Fi, try plugging it. Oh, okay. I'm having problems with my internet. So, but anyway, we're going to try this again. Okay. So hopefully we won't have any too many problems. But it's showing that I'm having connection issues. So feel free to sound off in the comments if there's if the stream goes dead or what have you. It's always something with StreamYards. Last week or a couple weeks ago, it was my microphone. Now it says it's the connection. Anyway, let's. I think I'm gonna have to make myself small here for this. So, without further ado, let's begin. So in the beginning was the Word, the Logos. We also know this esoterically as the creative verb. And as I've discussed many times, probably ad nauseum, the foundational nature of this is stanza. Stance. Stanza is the Latin origin of the word stance. To stand. To have a standing. For example, the principles that you stand on, the universal ethics. When someone is said to be in good standing, right? That's the cloud of meaning around the logos and stanza. But especially when it comes to poetry and poetry put to music, we have another word here that's related to stanza. It's called verse. You have verses in a song, for example. And music is, of course, a higher expression of language, because music is like language, it is sound. But words set to music is a higher version of just poetry, because the poetry now, the words, the stanzas, the verses become heightened, elevated by the music. And that's why opera is the highest form of art, because no other art form brings together all of the various different art forms, including visual arts, including poetry, including music. And then, of course, the live performance nature of it, and the ability for opera to tell stories of a profound nature and a tragic nature, and so on. So this is where we begin, with the creative power of sound, the word, stanza, verse. So if stanza is stance, then beneath it, we have substance. And again, I've shared this with you very often. This won't be new to most of you. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The Spirit hovered over the surface of the waters, over the surface of the substance. And the light shone in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. So the notion here is that the word, the stance, is the light, and the substance is the darkness. There is, but the light can shine and the darkness cannot comprehend it. They are separated. When in other creation stories in the Bible it says, God created the heavens and the earth. But there is a duality about it, that at the moment it's a separation. It's two unique, stance and substance. They are separate. They are very distinct from one another. So the one becomes two, but the two can't do anything in and of themselves. But what if we take stanza and substance and we put them into this configuration? Now we have stanza and substance, but united and intertwined. This is the law of three, where you have the masculine affirmation and the feminine negation, and their union, reconciliation. But of course, those words are the holy affirming, the holy negating, and the holy reconciliating. Yeah, you can understand them intellectually, and even thematically, and even on some level, you can appreciate them. But we're going to dive a little deeper into this, into the actual metaphysical process how the magic of that works. And we're going to do so using some different words, the words that we began with. So if we can understand that the creative verb, the logos, the verb, in the beginning was the word, and it was a verb, because verbs are action. Verbs are also being. The antithesis of a verb, for our purposes today, is the adverb. Now, what is an adverb? An adverb is a word that modifies a verb. Why is this important, and why is it on this side of the drawing? Why is it in blue? Because think about being. Just being. Now think about being lonely, or being hungry, or being fed up, or being tired, or being depressed. You see all those other words? And how many times have you said, "Oh, I'm so tired, I'm so lonely, I'm so depressed, I'm so hungry"? You've been saying, "I am those things. I am those adverbs." And those are all lies. If you open up the dictionary and look up hungry, you're not going to see your picture there. Or depressed, or thirsty, or tired, or whatever it is you say you are. The adverb conditions the verb. In other words, being and acting and doing in the world, or causing to create, but the adverb wants to come and condition that process, condition the verb, condition our experience of being. And what does this is the adversary. The aspects of substance within us, the mechanical aspects that create the conditioning. And the adversary also creates the adversity. Because as the adversary conditions and manipulates and alters the verb, the power of the verb, then it makes sense that though that conditioned reality stands in opposition, and we have the emergence of resistance. The resistance to what? The resistance to the word, the logos, to stanza. And in the emergence of that resistance, we have the emergence of an instance. The moment, in other words, the creation of the moment. When the verb encounters some form of conditioning in the moment, we now have some adversity is created. Now there's a check, there's an obstruction, but it's in the moment, in this instant, in the now. So this is the opportunity for the creative verb to offer some assistance in overcoming the adversity, working through the adversity. The element of the verb that is trapped by the adversary, contained by the adversary, and being conditioned by the adverb, and is finding itself locked in that adversity. So it needs guidance, it needs assistance in order to be able to work through. But there's free will involved to accept or not accept that assistance. On the other hand, substance, mechanicity, the adversary, that mechanicity is determinism. Now, I use the stance word here, fudged. Insistence. So we are always being tempted. We are always being, the conditioning is all, and that instance is there to create a kind of haze, a fog, a toxicity, our inability to have clarity. That, and then that insistence is there to get us to give in and do the obvious thing, the natural thing, as very often people like to use as a as education for whatever behavior. Oh, it's natural. Oh, okay, right. So there's that. Now, against all this, or because of all this, this creates that distance, that widening of the gap between ourselves, the character, and ourself, the player, the individuated essence of God, the innermost into Christ. And the more we give in to that force of insistence, the more we push away our Divine Mother and our innermost, who is desperately planting signs all around us and within us, providing us with assistance, guidance, and more. Blessings, help in all sorts of ways. But if we just follow the adversary, right, and become identified and attached via insistence to all the adverbs, to all the conditioning, then we'll have nothing but, finding ourselves on that, finding ourselves in adversity, and having that insistence to be able to want to change the adversity, change the circumstances, change the outcomes. We'll get to that in a minute. In the meantime, all of this is what is from born verses. You see, it is only by facing adversity we can create stories, epic poems, heroes, legends, myths. And what do these stories do? They tell the tale of how these heroes faced adversity and overcame adversity, and very often face the adversary within themselves. Now, very often that adversary is personified as a villain of some kind. But the point is that the verses are always about verses adversity, versus the adversary. So the words and verses is why I specifically put them together in the title of today's live stream. And out of an infinite number of those stories playing themselves out, moment by moment, with the emergence of the so-called universe. Uni meaning one. It's one big story with an infinite number of subplots, an infinite number of dramas playing themselves out, infinite number of verbs and adverbs dancing, creating the I'm having a moment of downloading. This, what we call the universe, this one being that is simultaneously experiencing an infinite number of stage plays, for lack of a better word. And it's all so that the word can know itself. Because how can you know yourself if you haven't been tested, if you haven't faced anything, faced an obstacle, faced whatever? What kind of hero are you if you've never faced an adversary, a villain? But there's more to this. And where I want to take this next is this whole diagram, right, has a circumference. But really, we're talking about is circumstance. You can't have a circumstance without the whole picture. And what's more, the beginning of growth, the beginning of writing your story and contributing to the universe and awakening to your place in that universe as a hero. In other words, the emergence of your conscious awareness of yourself requires an acceptance of everything that's on the left-hand side. And in other words, the acceptance of the circumstances that you find yourself in. Because for the verses that you are here to write, the verses that you are here to contribute to the universe, those verses require a certain adversary to present a very specific adversity. This is why people say, well, you need your ego, you need your ego. Well, you need your ego to overcome it. You need your ego to be challenged by it. So you accept the ego that you have as your opponent, your adversary. But you don't How about now? Can you hear me now? I need a thumbs up or a thumbs down or in the chat or something if you guys can hear me. Okay, let me do it this way. Oh. Test, test, test. It should be working. Okay, Leah says she can hear me now. Okay. All right. If it drops out again, just let me know, because it's, like I said, StreamYard, it says that my internet connection is not good today. Unfortunately, I don't have any control over that. So it's just, I have a terrible ISP here. So what am I going to do? Where were we? Oh yeah. So this, we're going to say what goes down must come up in accordance with the Alm of Life. What goes down eventually has the opportunity to come back up. And here, this is very specific. Like, that's why my background today are the pillars of Jacques and Boaz and the Tory Gate, right? They're connected by the crossbar, by the arch. And we have the right-hand pillar, the left-hand pillar. These are the two pillars of the tree of life. And as they relate to the Tao, you can see there is an upward motion and a downward motion, but that creates the continuum of the Alm of Life and the ongoing process of growth, of creation and accumulation of more gnosis, of more self-evident experiential knowledge, as the word, stanza, and substance play their dance. And that process begins with fluency. The fluency is an interesting word that relates both to language and to water. Now, I wonder if I prepared this. Hopefully you guys will be able to hear it.
This is what it is, okay? I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now, you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now, water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
That, of course, is the famous Be Water interview with Bruce Lee. And like language can take any form. Sound can take any form. And like water can flow or water can crash, so too words can flow or words can crash, words can hit, words can strike. But the fluency is essential to the creative verb. It must be able to flow like water, despite the fact that it's in mind, we think more of air, but regardless, because we're talking about the interaction here. Now, in substance, we have the antithesis of fluency. In substance, we have where is it? We have hesitancy. Now, hesitancy is the antithesis of fluency because when you think of the word hesitant, right, you're not thinking about flowing. Hesitancy, you go in there are stops, you pause, you wait, you hesitate. And the reason why you hesitate is out of fear, a lack of confidence. In other words, you don't have that fluency. So people who don't speak English, they tend to speak in broken sentences because they have to think about everything that they're trying to say. It's true for anybody who doesn't speak a language fluently. Their speech is hesitant because they don't want to make a mistake. Whereas someone who speaks fluently doesn't hesitate, and the words just flow like a river. Again, fluency versus hesitancy. But there is another aspect of hesitancy that we should consider. And this is most readily illustrated by the mechanism of an anti-lock braking system. You might be wondering, what the hell does that have to do with anything? Well, it's interesting that an anti-lock brake system, the theory about it is it prevents you from locking up your brakes and skidding out and losing control of your car. So what anti-lock brakes do is they pump the brake very rapidly, many times a second. And the effect of this is it allows the disc to advance, but in it creates hesitation in the disc, as opposed to locking it up entirely or just letting it spin. Instead of the wheel just spinning on its own or being locked up, causing the car to skid and losing control, it allows for the vehicle to maintain control while applying the brake very rapidly, but in this hesitant sort of way. On, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. That is very telling. That reveals a great deal. Because hesitancy, as it mirrors an anti-lock braking system, is all about control. Maintaining control. And the impetus to put on the brakes is to avoid something. And hesitancy in general, when you get on a diving board and you're standing on the edge of the diving board, and you're looking down at the pool, and what do? You're afraid of taking the plunge. You hesitate. So this is fear. There's no fear in fluency. And when we talk about pouring our heart out to someone, pouring forth our love, our love flowing like a river, or our selflessness, just giving of ourselves, that's the nature of water to do that. It just flows. That's fluency. Hesitancy is the opposite. So it's related to fear and control, and it's this jarring, stepped, mechanical, physical act, whereas fluency and fluidity, it's like Bruce Lee was describing water, which is why he says, be like water. And if you have ever experienced anything in your life like dancing or martial arts or yoga, and you compare what it was like doing these activities the first time when you didn't know what you were doing, or you weren't fully comfortable in being in your body, or so on and so forth, you probably were very hesitant. And the first time you ever danced with your spouse, maybe there was like some hesitation there was some fear, there was some anxiety, there was who knows what there was, but it's certainly not as fluid and harmonious as you dance with them today after 10 years or 20 years of marriage. So, but fluency, in order for fluency to to enact meaningful creation and meaningful change, has to work with the law of three. And so it requires confluence. Harmonization. Two fluid motions coming together and doing that dance. That's confluence. That's union. That's harmony. That's where we get the words yoga from the Sanskrit yug, and the word religion from the Latin religare. So confluence means with fluency, to be one with fluency. And the whole Tao that you see here, this is all about the stanza and substance, the fluency of stanza, creating a harmony and creating a confluence with substance, despite the fact that substance has this inherent hesitancy, right? That's the position, that's the resistance. But fluency can overcome that resistance through confluence. But the resistance to that confluence is influence. What's the difference between confluence and influence? It's worthwhile meditating on that. But remember that as we proceed here, what I said at the beginning about versus insistence. Assistance honors free will, whereas insistence does not. Influence seeks to impose, and confluence merely invites. Influence impose, confluence simply invites. Confluence opens its arms. And confluence, because of acceptance of substance, acceptance of the nature of what it's working with. So you look at how water, for example, slowly erodes rock. Water can erode rock, but it does so very slowly, just by flowing. And the minerals dissolve into the water as the water flows by. As the water flows, its fluency invites the minerals to participate, to harmonize, to join it, to unite with it, to be with the fluency, to go with the flow, right? Enter into the flow. And so the minerals that are affected by the flow, they are affected by that invitation. Influence is like, no, I want to erode this thing and I want to do it fast, and forget about inviting whatever. Get me the acid. And you pour acid on the rock, and the acid starts eating away at the rock. Or you just take hammer and chisel to it, or a jackhammer or whatever, right? So the world of mechanicity, the world of substance versus the word invites and substance imposes. It's free will and determinism again. But in order for that invitation to achieve that confluence, there is a surrender. There is an acceptance and an allowing, which freely and willingly takes place. When you lose yourself, you give yourself wholly and completely, you commit to the fluency, to the opportunity to achieve confluence. Like when you surrender your heart in a relationship, you surrender you love someone with reckless abandon, or you give in wholly and completely to your dreams, your insight, your inspiration. You surrender to your higher self. Recognize that I'm just a character in a game. When the substance realizes that it was born, it emerged from the word. So we can surrender to achieve that confluence. And that surrender can be witnessed in a choir. In a choir, you have dozens, if not hundreds of individuals, all of whom have beautiful voices, all of whom could likely uh, sing solo. But what do? They surrender their ego, they surrender their need to have the spotlight on them, and they surrender to the harmony of the choir. And in the process of doing that, they achieve this confluence, all singing together in harmony. And that's the beauty and the power of harmony over the influence of an individual and what that influence can render. You see, in mechanical nature, it imposes for a reason, and that reason is to render something, to create an outcome. And it's interesting how in 3D, in the world of virtual reality and 3D imaging and CGI in videos and so on, in movies, computer graphics, and also in video games, the word that they use is render. When you take a wireframe model and then you tell the computer to render the final 3D image, you are taking the inputs that are the influence, you take it through its logical conclusion, you render the final outcome based on the influence, the inputs. Above, fluency longs for confluence, and that is attained through surrender. And we know through the law of three that when masculine and feminine unite, they surrender to that union, to that confluence, then creation takes place. Sire. And because we began with the word, the logos, in the beginning was the word, and the word was with God, and the word was God, our Father who art in heaven, what we sire by surrender to confluence is a creation of God, God's creation. And the word sire specifically refers to father having a child, siring offspring. A soul, an awakened soul, an enlightened soul, or more, a resurrected soul, the Son of God, the Son of Man, who is next in line to the throne, if you want to use that terminology. But what can be sired in the world of substance is affluence. Oh, I got to make myself small again because you guys can't see that. There we go. So fluency and confluence in the leads to sire of affluence. Affluence does not necessarily only mean material wealth. Affluence can mean joy, happiness, peace, but also prosperity, also abundance, as the New Age people love to harp on. Oh, abundance, abundance. Well, no, it's affluence. Affluence that is, in other words, that has been sired by the surrender to confluence, such that fluency can express in and through substance as affluence. It is fluency, but it is not fluency in its purest form. It is affluence. It is fluency of something. It is something. It is substantiated, in other words. It's substantiated fluency. Because really, fluency, I mean, in the beginning, it's nothing, right? The word, the verb, language, in the world of archetypes, it's the zero dimension. The unformed essences of form. It's just essence. Like we have the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. We have fluency and then we have affluence. And that affluence is in the substance, in the world. The problem, of course, is that the adversary and conditioned verb, through adversity, in the face of adversity, has desire. Now, we've talked about desire many times, and we've explained that desire means to desire, right? It's the antithesis of sire. Desire can mean throne, but if sire means to give birth to, right? To sire offspring means to give birth to, then desire also means to abort. And ironically, what mechanical nature desires, what the ego desires, the adversary, it wants that affluence. But it wants material affluence. It wants the affluence for itself, in its own way, to reflect itself. It wants affluence in wealth, fame, land, followers, and influence, because it needs to create, it needs to have a feedback loop here, where affluence of influence gives it more ability, the ability to create more affluence, and it's this endless cycle. And we talked about last week, when we were talking about the difference between power and strength, material affluence, it's like material strength. It is subject to the law of entropy. It means it must constantly be renewed, renovated, reconditioned, reaffirmed. renegotiated, it's always, because it's the cycle of mechanical nature, of life and death, and the cycle of building up and breaking down, of entropy. So in the world of substance, affluence of substance only must lead to more influence in order to be able to render more desire for more affluence, in order to keep short up. But what the result of that is it creates effluence in the supernal worlds, in the heart and the mind. And if the consciousness gets caught up in it, so what is effluence? Effluence means to obstruct, but it's a specific word that's like smog or fog. It's to obstruct vision. Effluence is like toxic sludge in the water. So if affluence is a substantial flow, or a flow of something, effluence is a flow of something that makes the fluency murky and dark. You can't see through it, and it's toxic. It's poisonous. It's that's effluence, like raw sewage in the water. It makes our heart and our mind filthy. And that causes our ignorance. It causes our inability to see clearly. It can block us from ourselves, knowing ourselves. And we can get caught and stuck in this, down here because of this. And then we focus on our desire for effluence, but material affluence. And it's that desire for more and more and more and more pleasure, and more wealth, and more things, and so on and so forth. That's the effluence. That's the toxic sludge in our consciousness that blocks us from these higher levels. And so really, that's why we move the two dots into the center like that, because we wanted to show the dynamic here of, and using the words to express how the different aspects of creation interface and oppose one another, but to create a dynamic. And under normal circumstances, that's fine. Under normal circumstances, we need to clean our higher self, our consciousness, of the effluence. That is, in other words, the influence of the rendered desires for material affluence and corporeal affluence. We must clean that out. And if we can clean out the effluence, then we can share affluence through the surrender to confluence. with our inner source of, our inner essence of fluency, our innermost intimate Christ, our innermost being, our divine mother. And for most people, this is the task. That's why we talk about, ego death. Actually, maybe I'll draw it here, right? Ego death. Comprehension and elimination of egos. Because all we need to do is recognize and use our willpower to see their affluence, the effluence in our psyche that is created, that is our psychological, our inner psychological expression of hesitancy, influence, rendering desire for material affluence. All we need to do is see these four elements creating that effluence inside of us, that toxic sludge. And if we can clean that out, then we're off to the races. And really, it's just overcoming that. It's just cleaning out that. That's, for most of us, that's the work, that's the task. But you notice that, and that's what allows us to be born, to be sired, by surrendering to the confluence, to union with our higher self, the highest expression of ourself. Now, in other words, this, and I drew earlier the two arrows, right? What goes down can come up if we can do the work, white magic, right? Because this is the right hand path and the left hand, the right hand path, left hand path, but they're oriented in that way. But I promised you at the outset that I would explain what the self-help movement and the New Age movement teach when it comes to manifesting desires and visualization and changing yourself and changing your identity, changing your life, and all this kind of stuff. Observe the following. Observe what happens. I spent several days this should really be in black letters, but anyway, this is very rough. So I just finished a few minutes before we started today. So I spent last week, as you know, 4 days with Tony Robbins, but I have extensive experience studying the New Age gurus and so on and so forth. I want you to observe what happens when fluency is channeled the substance through a process of unacceptance. Substance and hesitancy takes precedence. The desire to control. Remember, like pumping the brake, like your anti-lock brake system. And the left side goes up and the right side goes down. Because now, look, whereas before, Okay, this is the right. You can see that, I hope. Now it's this way. It's inverted. The bulb of goes in one direction. It goes up. But when hesitancy replaces fluency and fluency replaces hesitancy, fluency takes the place of hesitancy. And hesitancy takes the place of fluency. Now you have the substance on top. But what else is taking place? You have fluency now driving influence. And fluency empowering the ability to influence, the ability to render desire for worldly affluence. By funneling, by channeling, by harnessing, by exploiting the verb. The verb, the stanza. Because of unacceptance of circumstance. So again, the left side goes up, the right side goes down. And what's more is confluence, surrender, and sire are now contained by hesitancy. Fear and control. Whereas fluency now empowers influence and rendering and of desire for worldly affluence. And so and confluence, surrender, and sire are contained between hesitancy and effluence. In other words, this has taken place. A focus where substance and circumstance are on top and take precedent in life. And an unacceptance of the word, of the stanza. And so whereas here we still, here we had the emergence of resistance and the emergence of insistence. The stories, the verses, the moment, and the moment of challenge, the moment of overcoming. Now, all of that has been reversed, and we have a divergence of resistance and a divergence of instance. What does divergence of resistance mean? It means we have many desires, many egos, many distractions. We have a constant onslaught of resistance from every direction to our higher self. And if instance means present moment, then a divergence of instance means what? Means the future, and it means the past. And a divergence of resistance means the busy mind. That's constantly right? And what is it constantly thinking about? It's thinking about the future, and it's thinking about the past. What it wants, right? Its desires for some future affluence, and what it doesn't want, and what it regrets about the past, and shame, and worry. So it's all worry, it's all negative, right? But through the harnessing of fluency, the self-help people say, no, 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 use your fluency. Use your fluency to do what? To focus on what you want, on the affluence that you want to create. And then you will have the influence over others to render that which you desire in the world, in your life. Energy flows where attention goes, but you have to be fluent. And so that's why whereas before we talked about using magic, white magic, now you're looking at a visual representation of what? Black magic. Because words are magical. And if you harness and exploit and channel fluency in and through your substance, because you find life and all its challenges unacceptable, and the mission that you are here to do by your innermost being, that's assigned from stanza, from what you stand on, your foundation, your higher self. If you find all of that adversity unacceptable, you can't accept it, well, you're going to change your circumstances. You want to change your circumstances, and you do that by elevating substance and elevating your hesitancy and your inability to accept circumstances, and then you channel, and you make stanza yourself. Okay. Does anybody have any questions before I go on? Because you guys have been really quiet. But this is basically as far as I got with this. This, yeah, to this. Anyone? Anyone? When's the Super Bowl? Is that today? Is anybody betting on any of the matches? I don't know. Okay. So this sort of just came to me, and the hardest part was getting all the visualizations to kind of work. I haven't, obviously there's more to be said, and there's more to be done with these slides, but I've had them like really an ugly, like they started out like this. It was so But this is what all of that self-help stuff is, and all that new age manifesting your desires is. And all these people, they all talk about power, right? Awakening your power and harnessing your power and using your power and your superpowers and power, 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 power. It's all power. But like I described last week, it's when you take your divine strength, your fluency, you take control of that, command of that, and now you're applying it and harnessing it and exploiting it to have influence. Now, we can talk about maybe one of the most obvious examples of this, and that was Adolf Hitler. There's a scene in the King's Speech when the royal family are watching Hitler address a crowd of hundreds of thousands, and King Albert is watching him give the speech, and Elizabeth, his daughter, says, "What is he saying, Papa?" And Bertie says, "I don't know, but he seems to be saying it quite well." And therein you see, and it doesn't matter whether it's you're watching films of Hitler addressing a crowd, or you're listening to a sales pitch from a veteran salesperson. Like there's that scene from Wolf of Wall Street when Leonardo DiCaprio's character goes to that junk stock trading company, and he makes his first call, and everybody else is just staring at him with disbelief. Why? Because they're so impressed by his fluency, by how eloquent he is, his command of the language, how naturally and easy and effortless it all is. Which, that's, by the way, all of those words come into play when you're talking about fluency. It's like effortless. It comes with ease. And then you look at infomercials or the sales pitches even done by the new age gurus and the self-help gurus like Tony Robbins, and you participate in one of his free seminars and you experience just how fluent he is and how effortlessly it all seems to just pour out of him. But then you realize that the whole 4 days is an elaborate sales pitch. He's there to influence you and try to render an outcome where you're signing up for a 400-day program, a $495 program. Sorry, not 400 days, $495 for another 5-day program, or however long it is. There's ultimately affluence on the line here. And let's be clear that all of this is in the service of hesitancy and control. Because the anti-lock braking system is pumping the brakes on your higher self so you, the vehicle, can maintain control. And the thing that the Black Lodge has to control is this. And control everything outside of themselves through this: influence, rendering, and desire. So that's really all I had for today, frankly. I just wanted to give a test test drive and see what anybody thought about it. If anybody had any reactions to it or thoughts about it. It's a way of showing the inversion of something that, I mean, there is a right way to this. There is a right way to this, right? It's in the Tao. It keeps things on the level we all have in order to achieve prosperity of mind and heart and body here in the world of substance, in the world of resistance, and tell a heroic story. We have to overcome the influence of and the desires of the adversary and the conditioning, the adverbs, and all of that, which creates the effluence inside of us. But that's very different from being seduced into inverting everything, where everything becomes divergent. And now our higher self is contained within fear, between fear and the effluence, and all of our focus and all of our energy is down here. And all of this gets canceled out. That's black magic. And yeah, you can create physical material abundance, but at what cost? That's what they don't tell you, because they don't know. Or they know and they don't tell you. But many of them don't know, because they're just pawns, right? They're useful idiots. They've been goaded into this process because they were taught by others how to do it. And if someone comes to you with the Tao in this shape and only shows you this part and doesn't show you this part, only shows you this part, it makes sense, right? Fluency leads to influence. Lets you render and desire, right? There you go. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Because, like I say, I've run out of things to say. You know, I don't. You regulars. Oh, Shannon says, of course, Shannon Esfada. Thanks for being here today, Shannon. She says, thank you. It's all very interesting. Leah says, thank you as always, Atlas. Grateful for your teachings. Blessings to everyone. You know, I don't normally prepare anything. Usually it's just completely off the cuff. This is one of those rare occasions where all of this came to me off the cuff, but you know, a couple days ago, and I had just whatever time between then and now to try to put it into a format that I could show you and walk you through it. I think you'd agree that given my handwriting, and it would be impossible to draw this by hand and have it even remotely legible and make sense. It would be complete chicken scratch. So I thought it better to at least get some of the fundamentals down into PowerPoint. And then, of course, from here, you know, who knows where this goes? Do I create a video from this? Do I do something else with it? Do I create a carousel for Instagram. I don't know exactly. All I know is it was really important to be able to see and to be able to show you in a way that I had never seen before, that no one had ever shown me, and how the words come together and everything meshes together and comes together to reveal something quite profound in a way that explains the how, but also the what and the why. And I'm not sure I accomplished all of that, but this is early going. And it just goes to show you how many different forms of expression this stuff can take. And how I've been now, when it comes to visualizations and symbols, and like I've been working on this stuff now for, well over a decade, decades. And the allegories, the symbols, they're never ending. But here now, we're working with the Tao, which is one of the most fundamental of symbols. And we're talking about at the level of the law of three. We're talking about the level of creation, the level of the logos, the word, and how that still operates and functions at the heart of everything that we experience. And so we shouldn't be naive, and we cannot afford to be naive, and we cannot afford to dismiss the fact that there are forces at work that are actively trying to turn us into the antithesis of what we should be, of what we were born to be, of what we were meant to be, which is true human beings, made in the image and likeness of God. This. But how easy, how subtle, how clever are they convincing us to go there? Shannon says, no planning, you just stepped out in faith and created. That's what's important. And your studies and thoughts are very appreciated and interesting. So thank you, brother. Well, thank you, Shannon. And Benjamin Raphael says, I've noticed that elites tend to have a deep understanding of black magic and the power of language. Even in corporate settings, senior management often excels in communication, which gives them the appearance of being decisive leaders, despite the fact that more intelligent individuals may exist within the organization. Is this how power is truly managed in the world? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The fraternities in places like Harvard and Stanford and Oxford and Cambridge and all of these, but especially in the United States, the big fraternities, like not the important fraternities for the wealthy, the well-to-do, the ones where you have to know somebody to get in. those are effectively public speaking clubs. Yeah, they do the drinking and the partying and all that kind of stuff, but that's not why they exist. Their primary purpose is to develop conversational skills, public speaking skills, the ability to think on your feet, to be able to conduct interviews, to have spontaneity in your speech, and at times to be able to sound like you know what you're talking about when you know absolutely nothing about the topic, i.e., these clubs, these fraternities are like, this is the real education where future lawyers and future politicians and future, rulers of the world, where they get their training. Because it's, as you said, it's Benjamin says, skull and bones. Boy, everything's really laggy. Okay, skull and bones. And he also says, that is why Trudeau was a drama teacher, so that he can effectively deceive the naive Canadians. Laugh out loud. Well, I would say Trudeau developed his charisma and political savvy and everything else through all those years with being in the Liberal Party. But in any case, the point is made that language is an absolute necessity, and to be fluent in communication is an absolute necessity. It's even in, like in the beginning was the word, right? Like it is the power of God, the power of speech, to speak the universe into being. Now, obviously, that power is what the Black Lodge want to steal, right? Prometheus wants to steal the fire from the heavens. And they want to take it and take that power, that strength, and convert it into their own power and empower their desires. But that's why what you were, the observation you made, right? And Benjamin says, if he called them gods, men to whom the word of God came, and the scripture cannot be undone or annulled or broken. If he called them gods, men to whom the word of God came, and the scripture cannot be undone or annulled or broken. Shannon asks, what do you say about the law of manifestation, the 369 laws of the universe? What are your thoughts on this as opposed to God-given prosperity? I'm not sure precisely what you're referring to, because I'm showing you manifestation here. The entire live stream today was about that, and this is the 6. This is the 6. This is the 9, and there's 1, there's 2, and their union is 3. So the 369, you're looking at it. The difference is, do you do it this way where everything's inverted? right? That's still a 9. That's still a 6, but they're inverted. And you still need all 3, but everything's upside down and backwards. So you turn the 9 into a 6. What should be a 9 is now a 6. And what should be a 6, you've elevated it to the position of 9. That's black magic. That's what manifesting your desires is. And I've explained that and how that is so. But this is the 3, 6, and the 9. So I don't know what else you might be referring to. Benjamin says that was from John 10:35. And Shannon says, to be fluent in communication is an absolute necessity. Our words create worlds. It is said the power of life and death reside on the tongue. Yeah. And she also says, okay, thank you. I'm just learning myself. Oh, it's probably about the 369 thing. Benjamin Ochoa says, everything alluded or is about the 7 Hermetic principles, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure what you're saying or what you're commenting on, Benjamin. But yeah, I'm just not sure what you mean by this comment, or is about the 7 Hermetic principles. Maybe you can phrase that comment a little bit differently, or a little bit with a little more clarity, and then we'll see if we can address it. Well, what more can we say about any of this? I think everything we need to say was said, to be honest with you. I think it's probably best if we wrap it up for today, unless there's more comments or questions that you have that I can answer to, that I can try to answer for you. It's when you combine this with last week's live stream about power and strength, then it, the picture really starts to become more defined. Because of course, in my Human 3.0 video, I talk about the energy flowing down and out and the rest of it versus up and atom. But here very clearly, right, the energy is flowing down. It's flowing down and out because it's flowing, that fluency, that flow is flowing into influence and the rendering of material desires for material affluence. And as I was explaining, that's worldly strength, that's material physical strength, or corporate strength, financial strength, whatever you want to call it, fame, fortune, it doesn't matter. If it's in the world of substance, it will crumble, it will collapse. It must constantly be reinforced. Well, if it constantly needs to be reinforced all the time, how is that, or why is that? Because it's using that energy up. The energy that built it isn't in the building. It's slowly leaking. It's slowly falling away. It's losing that energy. That's why physical things break down. Metal rusts, right? Concrete cracks. There's, just like it doesn't matter what we build. It's not going to have that strength forever. So we have to keep reinforcing it or renovating it, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that takes more energy. That's why this whole notion of people who reinvent themselves, and Tony Robbins would say, if you're not the person you want to be, then you gotta create the person that you want to be. And where you create that, first and foremost, is in your mind, in your belief system. And how do you do that? You do that with words and energy and physicality. So you take that energy and using words and actions and sound, because he's very big on saying things out loud and saying things and channeling all the energy into the words that you're saying in physicality. Well, all of that is this fluency being channeled into this. And why? It's because of your unacceptance of the, quote, person that you are, rather the person that you need to, the effluent that's to be dissolved, your unacceptance of that, your hesitancy for that, and you pumping the brake, all of that, so you can maintain control. That's your hesitancy, right? That's fear. That's fear and control, because those are the same ego. And so you make that inversion, right? So substance through fear can control circumstance. And what circumstances? The affluence that you desire. And honestly, if Tony Robbins, was watching this, he'd have no choice but to agree. Because I haven't said here that's revolutionary, and I haven't said anything here that is worthy of contention. But I don't think anybody has ever been shown it this way before. Shannon Estrada says 7 Hermetic principles: mind, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, causation, and generation. I just looked it up. Yeah, no, that's fine. I just didn't understand what Benjamin everything alluded or is about the 7 Hermetic principles, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know why he pointed that out. Because that's the 7 Hermetic principles describe the 7 organizational laws of the universe. And the organizational laws are subservient and come after the law of 3, because 3 plus 7 is 10. So the law of 3 is the creative law of the universe, and 7 is the organizational law of the universe. That's why we have 7 colors, 7 notes, 7 octaves, etc., etc. Well, it alludes, everything alludes to that also. Yes. Strictly speaking, yes. But Let's see. Average Asia says, "Howdy, everyone. Howdy, Average Asia. Nice to have you here. I don't recognize the name, so I'm guessing it's your first time." The question of the Hermetic principles in this instance, it's everything can allude to them in the final analysis, but we're looking at the principles at work in the unfoldment of the law of three. And surely you can say that, I mean, the law of correspondence and the law of polarity, right, are at play here. The only difference is that polarity and correspondence, just like causation, these are organizational laws that are subsequent, that flow out of the law of three. They're present, but they exist in a more subtle form. It's very hard to explain. It's very hard to explain, because obviously there's polarity in the Tao, but it's not polarity as we experience or as we understand it. It's not quite the same. Benjamin says, "Do you think that one can lose his fluency when he has doubts in his inner or higher self?" One can lose his fluency when he has doubts in his inner or higher self. When you say doubt, do you mean doubt, or do you mean questioning, second guessing? An inability to accept? Because doubt is a quality of consciousness. So it's very unlikely that you have genuine doubt in your higher self, because consciousness emanates from the higher self, and there's very little reason for the higher self to doubt itself. But we mortals, we question and we second guess, and we want to know, we want verification, we want confirmation, we want guarantees, right? We want the facts, we want guarantees, we want to. So when we don't have those, when we don't get those, then we tend to fear the unknown. And when we don't get an answer to our questions, for example, then we can start to feel abandoned. We can start to feel neglected. We can start to feel, what's the word? Forsaken. Benjamin says, doubt means inability to accept what the higher self is saying to you due to limitations of our imagination. Yeah, so that's not doubt. That's resistance, and that's ignorance and hypnosis. Like if your higher self is showing you things or telling you things or trying to, inform you, and you can't see it, or you can't accept it, then that's cognitive dissonance, is what that is. And that's not doubt. That's a blatant refusal to accept the truth. And that's fear, that's hesitancy. It's not doubt. Doubt is the quality of consciousness that makes us pursue gnosis in the first place, that makes us pursue self-evident experiential knowledge, because the consciousness knows that that's the only real kind of knowledge. Everything else is fake knowledge. It's imagined, it's belief, it's knowledge in the mind. It's believing you know something is not the same as knowing. You have to evolve to a higher faculty of knowing. And in order to do that, you must doubt the things that you read and the things that people tell you and the things that your mind says, the things that your mind comes up with. You have to have that faculty of consciousness to doubt everything that you're seen or shown or presented in the mind. Because if you don't have that faculty of doubting yourself and doubting what everybody says and what everybody is on TV and on the internet and what's written down, then you just believe everything and you'll never pursue self-evident experiential knowledge. You'll never seek gnosis. Why? Because you will think you know everything. And the problem is that if you think you know everything, you think you have all the answers, or you want to believe certain things when you are presented with the truth, even if that truth is being presented from your higher self, if your belief is really, really, really strong in your truth, then you will have cognitive dissonance. You will go on the offensive, because the best defense is a good offense. And you will not doubt your higher self. You will oppose and resist the truth that they're presenting them. I'm just making this clear here because very often people make this mistake and they don't know the difference between doubt and cognitive dissonance. Doubt and fear of losing your comforting beliefs. The comfort and security that we get from beliefs, because the truth is a threat to our comforting beliefs. Shannon says, if you can just give me a minute here while I bring it up. My understanding is that we are not to depend on our own understanding, but in everything trust God. That's what I've been taught also. Trust your innermost essence of God. Yes. Your innermost intimate Christ, your inner guru. Don't be roped into what others tell you God wants for you, or that others tell you what God said or did or what have you, right? You have your own innermost essence of God within. That's your guru. That's your greatest teacher. So that's what you want to connect to and follow moment by moment. And that's why we observe ourselves and we remember our Divine Mother, and we cultivate discernment, and we cultivate the faculty of intuition and of being able to see with our third eye and being able to read reality as scripture, because the living, breathing word of God is not bound within any book. It's all around us and within us, but we have to have the eyes to see and the ears to hear it. And that is a process of orienting ourselves properly on the Tao, right? Of surrender and of giving birth into the world through confluence from the source of fluency within us, and bringing and being a source of affluence for the world. Not necessarily material wealth, but an affluence of truth, an affluence of light, an affluence of love, of kindness, of whatever it is that's the particular eccentricities of your innermost being, of your sire, your Father in heaven, your true self, your innermost player, your innermost intimate Christ. Whatever he wants to sire in the world, whatever he wants to make affluent in the world. Okay. While I've been talking, we've got a whole bunch of Shannon says, my understanding is that, yeah, okay, we've got that one. Benjamin Raphael says, doubt means inability to accept what yes, okay, we got that one too. Step out and believe before we see. That's where faith comes in. Fear not, 365 days a year. These are things I've learned. Faith, well, here, for your benefit, Shannon, this is the origin of the word belief. Be life. This means to serve or surrender willingly. Two words, be life. That's how you pronounce this. To serve or surrender willingly. That's where that word comes from. And faith means to know intimately. Intimately. So the only surviving form of faith is in the word to be faithful to your spouse. Neither the word belief nor faith has anything to do with concepts in the head. Neither. They both have to do with knowing, and knowing intimately, directly. So to have faith in God, you must know God. You must, and the only way to know God is through your innermost intimate Christ. There are far too many people who think that faith has to do with belief, and so their faith is limited to mental concepts in the head. But you can see that just like being a faithful servant, it's like being a faithful wife or a faithful husband, right? You serve and surrender willingly to your family, to your children, to the upkeep of the household, and to the raising of your children, for instance. And to be faithful to your spouse, that's not a question of belief either. It's not a question of, oh, well, I think I'm faithful. No, you either are or you're not. It's an objective fact. Shannon says she gets it, so we'll move on. Okay. Shannon says, however, sometimes questioning everything can be maddening. Yeah, if you're questioning with your mind. But that's why we want to cultivate consciousness. Because doubt is a quality of consciousness. And it doesn't question everything. It simply says, oh, okay, this person says X. Well, okay, that's what they believe. It's just not identifying and attaching to beliefs. That's all doubt is. It's non-identification and non-attachment. There's nothing maddening about it. We only drive ourselves crazy questioning everything when we use our mechanical, rational mind, which is like, oh my God, I don't know what's going on, and I don't know what's true and what's not true, and I can't sort through all the fake news, and I don't know who's telling me the truth, and I don't know who's lying to me, and blah, 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 right? That's all the divergent resistance of the mechanical mind. The consciousness is not like that. The consciousness is, hey, relax, relax, settle down, lie down, put on some beautiful music, breathe deeply, do some pranayama, relax your body. You don't have to worry about quieting the mind. Just watch it, but don't identify and don't attach to it. Just watch it. Just let it do its thing. Let it go crazy. Just watch your mind being crazy, knowing that you are not your mind. You are not your mind. You are not your thoughts. You have a mind, and your mind is constantly spitting out thoughts. That's like saying, I have my own version of Chat GPT in here, and it's constantly being prompted by whatever I see, whatever I smell, touch, taste, feel, and all the memories that I have and all the desires I have for the future are all thrown in at any given moment, in any given combination, into my internal Chat GPT. And of course, it's going to spit out a whole bunch of nonsense, like Chat GPT does, like all the large language models do, because mechanical minds cannot know the truth. So relax. Just observe it. Just observe. And if you lie down and just watch your mind and just observe it and not feed it your energy and not feed it any emotionality, not feed it, not identify, not attach to it. Just watch the thoughts come and watch them go and let them go. Acknowledge them and let them go. Acknowledge them and let them go. Eventually, your mind will run out of steam and it'll settle down. It'll begin to settle down. It'll settle down and settle down until finally the winds of mind will stop blowing and the waters, the surface of your mind will be still, like a high mountain lake when there's no wind blowing at all. And it's completely still, and it's like a mirror. And in such a lake, on such a still surface, such a surface can reflect the heavens. Benjamin says, if I can bring it up here, doubt is a beautiful thing when applied appropriately, but it does mess with our minds. Yes, because our minds want to believe that they know stuff, and the mind doesn't know stuff. And doubt is what reminds us that we don't know stuff. It is given unto us to know, but we don't know unless we know it directly through experience, through consciousness. Leah says, the way out is in. Yes, nicely said. And there goes my picture again. Shannon says, duality, it's a necessity. Shannon also says, just being, yes. Benjamin Raphael says, thanks for the clarification. I really see what you mean. Resisting the truth feels like going against what your higher self is trying to tell you. It actually reminds me of the story in scripture where Zechariah lost his voice after the archangel Gabriel told him his wife Elizabeth would conceive John the Baptist. I've always felt that was connected to how we can lose our clarity and fluency when we resist our own inner wisdom. Yeah, no, it's, as always, Benjamin, we can always rely on you to provide a worthwhile scripture or story from scripture to emphasize the point we're making. But yes, you're right. Shannon says, learning to flow and trust. And she also says, I'm so right-brained at times, learning to just observe. Well, no matter where we are on our path, the path is not easy. And the forces of treachery are always seeking to obstruct and to tempt and to make us fall. So it's important to observe that and not get discouraged by it, but accept it. Accept it. That's part of what it's all about. And acceptance of circumstance. And no matter, what we're dealing with, whether it's, chronic beliefs or chronic, like, reoccurring thoughts, maybe we have various different vices that we indulge. Some of us might even go so far as to call them addictions or obsessions. And some of us have conditions that might even land us on the autism spectrum, ADD, ADHD, depression, anxiety, what have you. It doesn't help us if we allow ourselves to get bogged down and discouraged by whatever burden, that we're here carrying, whatever the nature of the adversary that we're here to face and that we're here to overcome. It's just more productive to remain unidentified and unattached to that burden and recognize it for what it is. It's the adversary that's here to teach us and to help us grow and help us develop into the person, into the soul, to the monad, into the consciousness that we are meant to be, that we were born to be. And that the only way to develop into that version of our higher self, to that level of being, is to face the very adversary that we're now confronted by. So there's no point in rejecting it. There's no point, and there's no point in being discouraged by our circumstances. And that's why self-observation, dispassionate self-observation, unidentified and unattached, assists us in cultivating that ability to just have awareness without judgment, without condemnation, without getting bogged down into the circumstances themselves. That way, higher likelihood of receiving the assistance. Remember earlier, way back in the presentation here, we had insistence and assistance. Because the part of us that wants us to get bogged down or discouraged by our circumstances, well, yeah, those voices in our head are very insistent. The one that says, oh, you're never going to get out of this. Oh, you're never going to go over this. You're never going to be able to do this. You're never going to be able to do that. You're just a loser. You're just a this. You're just a that. Right? These voices in our head, where do you think they're coming from? They're not coming from your higher self. Does that sound like assistance to you? Does that sound like guidance? You're a loser. You're a failure. Give up trying. You're never going to get anywhere. This is not the word. These are not the words of your divine mother. These are not the words of your innermost father, who are trying to sire themselves through you Shannon says, I try to repeat, I am well, I am calm, all is well, and just breathe. It tends to help me. I have many diagnoses, and these things I've been able to get better by with these mantras. So those are affirmations, and they can help you temporarily, but they constantly need to be repeated. They're never going to take hold in any kind of permanent sense, because affirmations are a version of this. Affirmations are a version of that in inversion, right? Like using the language to try to change who you are. But that's not actually going to get at the heart of what is behind the diagnoses that you suffer from, right? So if there's mold on the wall, you can wallpaper over the mold, but the mold doesn't go away because you wallpapered over it. Does that make sense? This, what you see, what we've been talking about for the entire live stream, should be showing how the application of language in and through the mind, and in and through a desire to reject or avoid rather than accept, creates an inversion and puts hesitancy at the top, and puts the word, the power of the word, at the bottom, and is constantly in service of the desires and of the hesitancy. So here's what, instead of just repeating, I am well, I am calm, and all is well, visualize your higher self. Close your eyes and visualize your higher self. Your higher self, or your divine mother. Your divine mother can take any form she wishes. Whatever form will be most effective for helping you. So she can even be just a beautiful glowing ball of light. She can be the Virgin Mary. She can be Isis. She can be the Mona Lisa, which, by the way, the Mona Lisa is Leonardo da Vinci's divine mother. And you can visualize your divine mother or your innermost being, which can be any version, any God, any expression of divinity that appeals to you, that speaks to your soul. And you ask and pray. You can ask to be blessed with wellness, with calmness, and be filled with that light. And you can visualize the light emanating, a golden blue light emanating from your higher self or from your divine mother, penetrating you and surrounding you and engulfing you in this beautiful aura of golden blue light. And you can say, I am bathed with the light of love, of wellness, calmness. And then you can speak to your body. You can speak to your mind. You can speak to your heart. These are the three brains of the human machine. You can command them to absorb the wellness, absorb the calmness, and obey the will of your higher self, the will of God, the will of your Father in heaven and your Divine Mother. Now, you intercessor, you are a vehicle, you are a vessel, and you are accepting and you are allowing healing energies to have an effect on you. But you are allowing that fluency and that to work its magic on you, as opposed to you being the magician. And as opposed to you saying, you convincing yourself or doing this cognitive cognitive behavioral therapy, or what's the other language they use? Cognitive programming, neuro linguistic program, right? So identify with your higher self, put yourself in service, surrender to your higher self, to your Divine Mother, and allow your mother to take care of you and give you all that you need, or show you all that you need to see, because you can pray for that as well. In meditation, calm the mind, visualize. Like, it's one of the most powerful forms of visualization: relaxation, concentration, visualization, and prayer. Shown to see. Ask to be shown the nature of your tormentors. What are the elements inside of you that are actually responsible for the diagnoses that have been made and the phenomena that you suffer from? Believe me, what I'm talking about, because I was diagnosed with adult onset epilepsy, which was not responsive to medication. And most people on my channel know the story. I wrote about it in my book, which you can download for free at atlasalex.com. And it's but I really didn't comprehend the nature of my epilepsy until I encountered my demon one-on-one in the astral plane. But I had to be shown that. I had to make it possible to be able to be shown that. I had to surrender to the fluency of my higher self, not sit there telling myself, that I don't have epilepsy, I don't have epilepsy, I don't have epilepsy. That was not going to get me out of the situation that that I was in. And Shannon says, yes, we can command the cells of our body. I've heard this. Yeah. So there's a really good practice called the rites of rejuvenation. I'll even bring it up on screen. Let's see. We don't. Where are the rites of rejuvenation? Gnosis. Here. Yeah, the reason why my internet is so slow is that, for whatever reason, my local connection disconnected, and I'm connected wirelessly through another router in the house. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let me make this bigger. And I will put the URL in the chat, but I will also bring it up on screen for you. So it is here. So glorian.org, books, Sacred Rites for Rejuvenation. And there's 7 of them, and they're complete with descriptions. There's a lengthy prologue. This is basically the whole book. And they have all the instructions and photos on how to perform the rites, etc., etc. And if you want to have a very powerful practice of speaking to your body and telling your body what to do and telling your body to obey, the rites of rejuvenation will give you an excellent template on how to do that. Shannon says, okay, more visualization and surrendering and believing and being rather than chanting. Just be. Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions or comments before we call it a day? I'll give you a couple more minutes if you want to type something, but I think we covered quite a lot, and it was interesting today. It was, like I said, this was all very new and very fresh. I'd only received it just a few days ago, so and where it's going, I don't really know, but the dynamic here of a verb, an adverb, the adversary, an adversity, the emergence of resistance in the moment, right? The emergence of the moment, the drama, the challenge, the conflict, in which we seek assistance to fight off the insistence and bridge the gap between the distance, right? So bridge the distance. That is why behind me, the Tory gate is so powerful, right? Because the Tory gate is, it's when you bridge the distance between the two, now you have a gate, now you have a portal to take you from where you are to where you need to be. And right, and from this come the verses, the stories, the myths, the legends, the dramas, but the stories. We're storytellers. The entire universe is a story. They're filled with stories. They are the foundation of this universe and they feed back, right? Because the verses, right? Verses, like conflict, right? This is the eternal struggle, right? Between light and dark. But that's what gives birth to the stories, to the verses, like the verses of the Bible, right? And what do they call the Bible? They call it God's word, right? God speaks in verses. God knows himself through verses. Because the verb in and of itself, an action that doesn't confront and overcome an adverb, there's no story to be had. There's no learning. There's no hero's journey. This whole thing is what we call circumstance. And the acceptance of our circumstances doesn't mean we can't seek to escape them, like seek to overcome them, but first we have to accept them. This is our journey. This is our task. This is our mission, our challenge on the alm of life. So we descend before we can ascend. And this is just breaking down, right, in more detail, the process and the nature of what is helping us, what is seeking to ascend by giving birth into the world, the affluence, and what is trying to keep us stuck in hell by desiring and filling our minds and filling our hearts with all that effluence, all that sludge, all that toxicity that keeps us trapped in desire and hesitancy. And last but not least, today, to recognize that the Black Lodge wants to ascend and make God descend and work for them. And that's the inversion of everything. That's why the pentagram, the upright pentagram, when you invert it, becomes the goat head of Satan. Because that's what's happening. Human being that's being inverted, and the fluency is going down and being used, flowing and being channeled through the primal, carnal, physical, mechanical self to raise substance on high and to change and control circumstance. All right, so there's your 2-minute summary. I want to thank everybody for spending the time, spending the time with us together today. I hope you have a wonderful week. I look forward to seeing you all again next week, when we'll have another new topic. I won't know what it is until I'm told what it's going to be. So until then, I want to wish you all a very happy and peaceful week full of wellness. And until next time, I wish you all an inverential peace. Take care, everyone.